I am not making the same mistake as last time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Redseapodcast. This is Dennis, as always, coming to you from a very warm Greece, given how late it is. It's after midnight for me, and thankfully to cover what's again. I didn't expect to say this phrase after last May, but what is a very historic episode for this. So, and for Olympiacos, I have Gav with me. How are you, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I don't think I could be doing any better.
I don't think there is much better to be done right now, honestly. Seventh. Seventh.
I mean, I'm out of words to describe it. I mean, I'm thinking back to, after the Twente match, how disappointed we were with, the missed opportunity against Rangers. But once again, this squad and this manager, this club continues to just outperform any and all expectations. I mean, seven unbeaten in Europe after a really tough loss to Lyon on the first match day. We've conceded one goal in that time period. We finished the league phase with the best defense in the Europa League by 2 goals, 2 clear goals. We fixed our goal differential tonight with 3 goals and avenged the one of the worst results in Olympiacos European history, of which there are many. Back in 2022, we got to get back over Qarabag. I mean, ticked all the boxes. Ayub El Kabi again, adding to his historic tally. Julian Biancone getting the goal that you and I talk about how much we appreciate him back to last season, following the team when he wasn't registered, and just always having the best attitude and being a monster when he plays. He gets on the score sheet again. So couldn't be happier with all that. I'm getting a call from my boss. I got to step off real quick.
Yeah, that's all good. I'll continue for a bit on my own. What's there to say, honestly? What's there to even say? As Gav said, we'll be back very shortly. Hello to everyone watching as well. Uh, who could have expected this after what has been a very up and down winter with everything going on with Olympiacos after the three straight draws before the Porto game? It was all looking very uncertain, but just it just looks like once again with this club, just a switch flipped, and we not only went and took that amazing win, or first ever win in the draw, but we went on to again, as Gav said, not only take revenge for that 3-0 loss, which is one of Olympiacos' worst results in Europe ever. I will for sure agree with that. But and a result that, for those of you who don't know and who haven't heard the story in the past, I was there with my father and friend of mine watching that live. So I think I enjoyed today's result a bit more for personal reasons as well. Uh, we don't play Europe in February. We play Europe again in March. We're in the top eight of the Europa League. That's insane to me. Like, even go back to even historic moments like uh, the game against Arsenal, that insane victory against Arsenal. Of course, I'm talking about the late El Arabi goal. Like, even go back then to think of what we thought about getting to the round of 16 of the Europa League. And we're here sitting now, not only as European champions from last season, but making it look just normal that we got top 8 in the league phase and that we are straight into the round of 16 and have massive chances for getting even further into the Europa League knockouts. About El Kabi, again, I feel like I've used this phrase in the first 6 minutes of this show. I feel like I've used this phrase 5 million times. But what is there to say? Top scorer of the Europa League now, of course, having finished top scorer of the Conference League and one of the most vital pieces of that European Championship campaign of last season. People doubted him coming in this season. People saying that without Podence and without Fortunis, he wouldn't get as many goals. And we have a player of ours that's arguably now one of our best, if not our best striker ever. I think it's safe to say, uh, as the top scorer of the Europa League. That is crazy. Biancon, Biancon. As Gav said, uh, Biancon has honestly been one of the players that both me and Gav have felt is very underrated ever since last season as well. And Gav will confirm this, but behind the scenes, as we chat in most games he plays, we just both feel so happy that he's finally getting his chance and grabbing every single opportunity by the horns. And I think there wasn't a more fitting person to score the goal that would more or less confirm our presence into the top eight and basically avenge that result that we mentioned. Defense wise, the sentence Olympiacos has the best defense in the Europa League phase by 2 goals in my mind, as I stand here a 20, almost 21-year-old lifelong fan of this team, is crazy to me. What this squad is doing and what Mendilibar is sitting here doing is nothing short of a miracle. And just seeing this club level up more and more, I won't even sit here and lie to you. I got emotional when that Biancon, no, both with the El Cab goals, but I got emotional when that Biancon goal went in. Not only because it was Julian Biancon who did score it, but also because somehow uh, that just in my head that just felt like that was a goal that secured another historic season for this club. Love is much appreciated. Uh, I know that there is a massive following of Villa fans watching this show, mostly coming, of course, from the semi-final last year. I've had the joy to interact with a lot of Villa fans, uh, and they are all very kind to me and this brand. And I am more than glad to welcome another person into the Olympiacos family, and that's what the show is for. Either way, uh, the show is not only to connect Olympiacos fans from the diaspora, it's to bring more people in the Olympiacos family as well and make Olympiacos accessible, especially now that the club I've seen at its highest highs and lowest lows is getting more and more well known as we are doing miracles in Europe. Uh, the goal is to bring people in safely and judge free into this uh, family, and I'm more than happy to do that. And I'm sure That so is Gav, and I was talking about, if you can hear me, I was talking about uh, how a lot of Villa fans have come from you to the show, and I was welcoming this lovely individual that left this comment as well. You are muted.
So sorry, all out of sorts. Yeah, I mean, Villa fans definitely some of the most mutually respectful that we've come across in Europe. We talked about that last May. Like, most of the time when we play an English side, the fans are super disrespectful and they think we're farmers and this and that. Saw very little of that from Villa, and continuing. I've noticed a lot of Villa fans still kind of keep up with Olympiacos and make jokes about how El Kabi haunts them, all that good stuff. So, great couple days for both of our clubs as we've both finished inside the top eight in Europe. And who knows, maybe next season we could have a part three in the Champions League.
Run it the fuck back is what I want to say. I was mostly building up on your points and saying how I straight up got emotional when that Biancon goal went in because it's unbelievable to see that the club that you more than me, even though the difference isn't that much, but the club that we've seen from our first memories, the highest highs and lowest of lows, not only sit here as European champions, but having the massive opportunity to also do something once again amazing in a competition like the Europa League. Standing here with the top scorer of the competition currently as well. As you said, the best defense, and I spoke about Biancon and Gabi and such. And I brought back like a comparison to mindsets, like calling back to that Arsenal victory, of course. How we saw being in the Europa League round of 16 then, and how we stand here and see it now, and how the squad and Mendilibar have made it look normal to
I
finish
mean, it
seventh in a phase like that.
it's a basic expectation at this point. I mean, looking back a few years ago, winning a knockout round in Europe was a big deal. It was a huge deal. But that's been turned on its head. And like you said, that's huge props to Mindy Libar. That's huge props to the squad that he's kept together. And I mean, we're continuing to return pieces from last season. Hopefully that will continue. But I mean, it says so much that you genuinely have contributions from every area of the pitch, even talking about the weaknesses that we think we have. Exactly. Um, you know, our worst position is winger, maybe. And even tonight, you saw great things from Valde, even though he didn't score. I thought he was super positive. Gelson Martins again continuing to be fantastic. And we still have time to strengthen. So it's incredible where we're at, and taking a look at that perspective. One of the things Villa wise that we were kind of talking about earlier. I mean, the look at their last 10 European matches. The only at home, the only team who has gone to Villa Park and managed to win is Olympiacos. The last team to do it was Rapid Vienna in 2010. I mean, if that doesn't tell you the steps this club is taking, like, and I say that as a huge sign of respect to Villa, because clearly that is one of the hardest places to go play in Europe at the moment, and we still managed to go do it and get a result. So just it's unbelievable where we're at, and that we're sitting here talking about this right now, because just a couple years ago we were losing 3-0 to this team on the same field. So how things can change so quickly.
Not even big old Bayern and Juventus couldn't beat Villa, and that's insane that we went in with an Alcabe masterclass and demolished them. But yeah, as you said, even in our weakest position, which I would agree with you that our weakest position does stand to be the winger, and I don't really want to get into transfer talk today because this So it's too positive to get into that toxicity that surrounds Olympiacos. But I just want to say that today was another quick signal to shut the fuck up to people that doubt this team and say that uh, wrong moves are being made and that this team won't last and stuff like that. But yeah, as disappointed. I wasn't disappointed from Gelson Martins. I just think that he could have done way better with some of the chances than he did. And again, the thing about Gelson Martins that annoys me the most isn't his inconsistency, is that every three dribbles and a shot, he falls to the floor. And I will never understand how and why that constantly happens. Uh,
Must
as
be
you
the wind
said,
blowing him over.
it must be the wind. As you said, Christopher Velde, while again not inconsistent throughout the game, but having those quote unquote fits that he has when a play doesn't go his way was very productive and very into it today. Showed passion that has been lacking from him. And another person that since we're slowly drifting into the game and personal performances to credit is Santiago Esse, who for me had one of not only of the season, but in general in an Olympiacos shirt, and really reminded us of the Santiago Esse of especially the end of last season.
Well, and I think that we'll continue to see the best come out of these players too, because I mean, the one criticism I would say I have about this league phase in these European competitions, which by the way, I'm all for, but if I would say there's one criticism, it's that a lot of these games earlier in the campaign have less meaning. Just because you're playing more matches, it's a league phase rather than a group. So there's a much bigger picture to play for. I think as we get into the knockout rounds, and I was saying this to somebody on Twitter earlier, we are talking about El Kabi and his struggles in the first half, still manages to go score a brace. I'm like, just wait till the knockouts come. You know, he turns into a different monster. I think we'll see the same thing from guys like Ese, from guys like Chiquinho. We'll continue to see Kostas Solakis. I'll touch on him more here in a bit. Just be an absolute demigod. I mean, running out of superlatives for him. So I'm really excited to see, the return of that team once the knockout intensity comes back, and really see, because as we'll talk about here in a minute as well, we're going to have another gauntlet to run if we want to make our run at the Europa League. So we need every ounce of that.
I think that no matter the situation here, as insane as it is to normally look at it, we'd have a gauntlet to run either way because it is the fucking Europa League that we are talking about. uh, but yes, of course, we're going to see the best out of these players as time goes on as well. I saw the conversation you were talking about El Khabib wise. And you told me, even when I was more or less concerned about El Khabib, that he'd come out and score two bangers, and he did exactly that, even though the first goal was the scrappiest goal I think I've seen in so long. By the way, audio, camera, everything's okay, right?
Yeah, you were breaking up for a second a couple minutes ago, but you're
I'm
fine now.
hoping. Uh, was it just that minimal? Is everything okay now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. But yeah, as I was saying, as the team continues to build up and up, of course there are opponents that are going to be insanely hard to look at and process how we're actually going to stand there and do what we need to do to get past them. But we have the pieces to make a run, and more importantly than anything, we have the coach to make a run. So I really don't see any major concern. God help everyone stays healthy. especially with people like Andre Horta coming in and entering the picture as well. The player I want to mainly focus on, of course, is Jolakis, because that save in the first half had me on the verge of heart attack, and the runs he made especially had me again on the verge of a goddamn heart attack. What did you want to talk about him in more detail?
So I have a couple statistics here I'd like to read. So Olympiacos obviously finishes the league phase with the least goals conceded, 3. The next best team was Lazio with 5. So margin there. But our expected goals are 9, meaning that Kostas Solakis pretty much by himself prevented 6 goals, twice as many as he conceded. Uh, Again, I'll keep pushing the agenda. I know people are going to call me crazy and this and that. Top 10 keeper in the world right now. I'm standing by it. I think that every match he continues to prove why that is the case. And
I'm
we
back.
also, you're back. Did you hear what, the last part about what I just said?
No, no, I completely disconnected for some reason.
Got it. Well, just so I can repeat it for you, the statistic I just mentioned. Our expected goals conceded was 9. We ended up conceding 3, meaning that Zolakis prevented twice as many goals as he conceded. I mean, I don't know how you get more elite than that. The next best number for that is also by Lyon, who prevented 6 compared to their expected goals compared to their actual conceded. Um, and that's the reason why we find ourselves in the top 8, because our expected points are only 12. So easily 3 points saved right there, probably more, because we know that expected whatever can be a flawed statistic. But I mean, I still can't believe that he's with us. I mean, thankfully, being a goalkeeper, the transfer market for goalkeepers is a lot smaller than it is for strikers or midfielders. So God willing, we hold on to him for several more years. But I mean, he's top 10 in the world. That's my opinion. I'm standing by it. He's continuing to vindicate me, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, it's incredible what he's continuing to achieve. And you also have to give credit to the defense as well, the guys in front of him, but mainly Tsolakis. I mean, to be a goalkeeper and have game stopping moments like that says something special.
I think he's proved your opinion, right? Honestly, even stats wise, okay, it's looking outside the top five leagues, but his difference with the second keeper, of course, he's first and most ready for the top five leagues, but his difference with the second keeper is insane. And as you said, there is very little keepers, even in the top five leagues, that with the form he's in right now, are better than him, in my opinion. And speaking about credit to the defense, the depth we have defensively, in my eyes, is better than what it's been for so many years. And the quality we have in that depth, especially, for example, with even with Bruno coming in, who I'm very hopeful about, I think it is one of the best depth-wise again defenses in the Europa League. I don't think that's that far-fetched, especially with
No,
the record that the team has.
I mean, I'll take it a step further. I think this is the deepest defense Olympiacos has ever had. Period. Um, Granted, in the scale of the Europa League, that's a different conversation. But um, I would definitely agree that we're top 3, at least. I mean, you can't concede 3 goals in 8 games and not be in that conversation. Especially considering the fact that we did. I don't think we had an easy schedule by any stretch. Really, our only gimme game was this today against Qarabag. I mean, we played away to Porto, we played Braga, we played Lyon, we played a lot of big teams, and to keep 6 clean sheets is ridiculous. Ridiculous. I mean, less than half a goal per game conceded. That's just, they speak for themselves. You have to put us in that conversation.
And again, it's not been with a steady defense. I think we've not had the same backline completely in any of the games, if I'm not completely mistaken, because it's either been Rechos out and Bianconi in. It's either been Ortega or Pirola down the left. It's been either Rodine or Costinha down the right. It's been an insane rotation with even more insane effects. I think my connection is okay now, by the way. As you told me, I just cut once before I completely disconnected. But yeah, the weather's been messy today. That's why my Wi Fi is all insane. Another person that I do want to talk about, it's not Kostulas yet, it will be Kostulas, but the effect that Musakitis has when he's in the game versus when he's not. No disrespect, of course, to someone like Danny Garcia. For me, he played well again today, and for me, he remains more or less a bit overhated through the fan base. Uh, he's being lumped with people like Oliveira, which is insane. Uh,
He's the
but
Vicente
yeah,
Iborra of this season. I mean, he's not going to be a star level starter, but he's incredibly serviceable, and every time he plays, you know you're going to get a solid performance.
I mean, you saw him on the bench with his leg. He gives it all. It took him a bit as well, I agree, but he gives it more than all for this team. And I know I'm going to get flagged for saying this, but he is indeed the Vicente Bora for this season, at least in my opinion. Uh, Moving on from that, as I said, I wanted to get into Costulas a bit because if he scored, I don't give the slightest of shits if it was a deflection. But if he scored that goal, that would go in for goal of the season.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
I mean he had a
the
couple tonight that were just rockets. They hit both him and Muzakitis, man. They've shown they have that power shot. You know, the kids will spam in FC. I mean, it's crazy. Like for 18, 17 years old, uh, to be smacking it around like that, man. I mean, one of these days it's gonna go in. It's gonna take the roof off of the Karaiskakis.
I feel like his shot power is getting bigger and bigger as the game goes on, and not only that, but the choices he takes, whether that's his runs, whether that's passing, whether that's shooting, it shows veteran levels. And he is 2 years younger than no, is he 17 or 18? I think he's still 17.
Let me look. I think
Mm,
Muzakitis just turned 18. I
Musakit
think I
is
don't.
just 19, yeah, that's for sure. And Babis is a year younger, so he's
Yeah,
17.
so he still doesn't turn 18 until the end of May. He's 17 for a while.
This 17-year-old child who is 3 years younger than me has better decision making than half of the Super League, including some people on our team. And doing that on arguably the second biggest stage of them all in club football, the first, of course, being the Champions League, which will hopefully see him next year in. God help he doesn't live in the summer, which is a whole different story. But to have that type of decision making, it's I think impressive is one of the biggest understatements. It's admirable, is what it is, at least in my opinion.
Well, and his performances and his numbers speak for themselves. I mean, we just wrapped up the Derby, and I will not delve into that toxicity, but his goal contributions are much better than Fotara, a $30 million euro transfer out of Panathinaikos, who's already in his mid 20s, is getting boat raced by a 17-year-old. He's continuing to put it on in Europe. He got an assist tonight, and he could have scored two or three. I mean, he had some really good opportunities, but like you said, it's one thing to be able to get into the right positions, but to not be greedy. As a 17-year-old, he is already he can create his own chances, but he can create chances for others, and that is a trait that lots of guys never develop. I mean, you look at some of these big stars that play for big clubs. I saw last week in the Barcelona game people talking about Dembele. Look at that guy who's damn near 30 now, and he still refuses to give up an opportunity and misses it half the time. That's just one example. But again, like having that trait, being able to be unselfish as a young kid in a team while also maintaining aggressiveness for yourself. I mean, he's going to continue to be a consistent threat to any defense because you either step to him and he gets an assist or you give him space and he's going to score. So he's opening the game up for himself with his decision making by a ton.
Again, massive stretch. But his playstyle reminds me a lot of what I guess can be said as a true number nine. He reminds me a lot of Bobby Firmino.
Yeah, I mean, he's way more athletic than Bobby Firmino. That's the only thing. I mean, he has that technique and that finesse, but he's so athletic. Whether it's jumping, whether it's sprinting. I mean, I saw him win a couple headers tonight over center backs. Again, 17. Like he's out here, he's bodying grown men. I mean, he is going to be a hell of a player. Like he already is, but it's crazy to think that he's going to get 10 times better than this.
And I don't think there is a better duo of coaches to bring him up than Siledopoulos and Deliver. A small pause for those listening now and after, because I'm seeing the numbers go up to even 15, which is more than a record for this show. Do leave your stuff in the chat, questions or comments. We'll see them and we'll answer them, whether opinions and stuff like that. So, one last before we get into the generals of Europa League and possible opponents and stuff. One last thing I really want to focus on performance wise is Costinha.
He
Coming
was
in,
incredible.
coming in after being done so dirty and your mental being fucked with so bad after a derby. And I said this on the derby show as well. If you missed it, do go check it out. The stadium applauding him was the least that could happen, in my opinion, and I think that helped him a lot. But coming in, not scared to play your game, nor afraid to mess up, because deep down he probably knew that he didn't mess up. His control was off, and that's the only thing he did wrong in that play. But showing such a reaction to pull maybe your best game in the team and show that you can keep on improving. Just this guy just proves again and again that again, God help part transfers, we are set at the right back position for the next 5 years minimum.
I mean, he was great tonight. I don't think he was bad at all in the first half. At halftime, I was like, at 0-0, I was like, I want Rodine on because I want someone to push forward more and bomb down the right because that's more of his play style. That second half, I think Costinha showed that he's the fastest player on the team. I mean, some of those runs that he was making, 50, 60 yards, full sprint, controlling the ball, defender on his back. I mean, he was incredible. He shut me up. I saw him start to make some of those runs as we got into the second half, and we started putting a lot of pressure on him. Like, okay, he gets to stay. Let him run it all out. We can save Rodine for the league. I mean, again, he's one of those guys that is never going to be, you know, your super flashy, star of the team, but he's always going to come in and he's going to give you a hard-nosed, well-fought performance. He did that again tonight. We talked last season a lot about, how it seemed like Chiquinho and Horta and Eze between them had about 8 lungs. Costinha might have 4 by himself. I mean, I don't know how he was still able to make those sprints towards the end of the game. Um, he was fantastic, and again, it's just another insane bit of business from our front office to find that guy and to continue to find the right players in the right fit. I mean, he again pulling him from a uh, mid-table team in Portugal, and he's a complete gem. I mean, it's another piece of incredible business. He has been awesome, and like you said, I mean, he could be the next El Abdallawi. I mean, we talked about him, retiring this weekend. He could be heir apparent easily.
As you said, nothing too flashy, nothing too flair-wise, but he has 4 lungs for sure. And again, the thing I talked about Velde was the passion he has for this team, showing it since day one, unlike some in the squad. Uh, let's not forget today that he took an elbow to the dome of the nose and got
I, I don't
right back up.
I don't know how that it was the same guy. I can't remember his name now because again he's a bum. He was not good. I don't know how the refs were continuing to let him just body slam all of our players. He did it to Velde a couple times. He did it to Costulas a couple times. He did it to Alcabi a couple times. I don't know how that wasn't a red card. He puts his entire forearm into Costinha's face as he's running at full speed. I mean, that could be another conversation that we shouldn't get into because this is a positive episode. Though I thought the ref was terrible today. But yeah, I mean, that was one of the other funny things back to the derby. Panathinaikos fans complaining about the bruise that Ioannidis got from Retsos that he actually had from before the game. Um, that is what it actually looks like to play through it and not spend half the match on the floor crying like a child. I mean, again, that's you go back to it with this team, and it comes down to the mentality and the toughness and the relentlessness continuing to push forward. It doesn't matter if the game wasn't going our way in the first half. It doesn't matter if Qarabag are getting to be physical and not getting calls from the ref. Continue to push through it. Continue to run. Continue to fight, and we get our reward. That's why this team is where it's at, and it's why we've achieved what we've achieved in Europe. It's why we're achieving what we're achieving in the league, and it's why Olympiacos is always going to be a bigger club than Panathinaikos or any of these other guys that would rather try to flop and whine and cry their way to success.
We're we're a level above the league. Let's not lie. And again, for Panathinaikos, for example, because I've not hidden at all, despite the Panathinaikos friends that I've made through the show. There isn't a club in Greece. Some people hate Ike more, some people hate Pauk more. Uh, I don't hate a club more than Panathinaikos, and it's not close. Uh, will forever be bigger. That's not even close.
The only conversations and debates you can have around that are on Twitter. That's the only
Yeah,
place that it has any relevance because on
and
on the
that says a
pitch,
lot.
yeah.
These, thanks to the two people that keep me in check on the show, you and my lovely girlfriend, of course, these are the possible opponents.
I have it pulled up. I think it would be hilarious if we get Fenerbahce again. It wouldn't be Europe if we didn't play Fenerbahce. Um, yeah, I mean, all of those are tough matches. Obviously, there are much easier draws there. Obviously, you want to avoid Fenerbahce as much as we've had success against them. That will
The
be a tough match.
Fener that now has Milan Skriniar, Anderson, Talisca, and Lord knows who in that squad. Yeah, no, stay away.
Led by Jose Mourinho, I'm good. As
Yeah,
much as,
no, no,
as
no.
I would like to avoid that. Obviously, we know Twente are a tough team. that would probably be your easiest draw out of the four because Boda, I don't want to go to the Arctic Circle in March. I don't know about you. That doesn't sound like a fun away day. And then Anderlecht, I mean, I'm still scarred from 2015, so I would also like to avoid them.
I forgot. I forgot.
Yeah, no, I mean, all of those are tough draws. So it'll be interesting to see who we end up getting. What really scares me about the side of the bracket that we are in is if we win our round of 16, we are likely going to be rewarded with Lazio or Bilbao. And if one of those teams doesn't win, then we could get Roma or Porto.
Lazio or Bilbao?
Yeah, because we're going to be
Ran
the
that back. My brain froze at Lazio. Ran that back.
so our potential opponents in the quarterfinal, if we win in the round of 16 against what will be a tough team regardless, is either Ferencváros or Porto, Roma or Pilsenia, or Lazio or Bilbao. And we'll also be on the same side of the bracket as
First of all, can you hear
Frankfurt.
me?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Technical difficulties. I'll just keep it rolling then until Dennis is back. Um, but yeah, I mean, on the other side of even our little part of the bracket, we're going to have Eintracht, we're going to have Lyon, we're going to have United, we're going to have Tottenham. Very tough run. We'll be tested again as we were last season in the Conference League. But as we mentioned earlier, there's no team, no coach that I would trust more to be able to make some noise. Obviously, talking about winning the Europa League is probably a bit ambitious, but I definitely think that Olympiacos has it in them to make the quarterfinals, has it in them to make the semifinals, and who
Today
knows
is
past that.
fun.
You back?
Yeah.
Awesome. But yeah, I mean, tough matches no matter where we look. It'll be really interesting to see how we stack up against some elite sides in Europe, and some interesting away days as well. I mean, I think getting a club like Lazio or Bilbao or even Roma, you know, as much as they're tough matches, this is why you play in Europe, right? Uh, it doesn't mean anything if you're going to play Vikingur like Panathinaikos are. I would rather be with the big boys and see what we can do. And I definitely think that we can beat anybody in this competition on our day.
It's what did you call it when we started? Uh, we have to run a marathon.
Yeah, a gauntlet.
Yeah, a gauntlet. Thank you. It's exactly that. My brain still can comprehend that even if we do get lucky and get past whoever we draw, because let's not lie to ourselves, we're Olympiacos, we're either drawing Fenerbahce or Bodo Glimt.
Yeah.
It's insane. Who did you even say? Porto, Lazio, and
So our possible opponents in the quarterfinals are Ferencváros, Porto, Roma, Pilsenia, Lazio, or Bilbao.
Ernesto would let us qualify.
Yeah, I mean, your easiest match is Ferencváros, and even we had to beat them 1-0 both times
Are,
last season.
are we just running back last season's run?
I mean, we could do it backwards. We'll have Fenerbahce, then Ferencváros. I don't think there's anybody else from the repeat list, but who knows? It's going to be interesting no matter who we get. There's no easy matches past this point. So now it's time for, again, our guys, like we mentioned earlier, to bring their best and um, show us the form that they showed last season. I mean, we can absolutely make a run here and surprise some big teams again.
It's the least to be expected, as you said, which is completely insane, but it's expected that we do at least something. I think we're getting past the round of 16, if you want my honest opinion. I think that we'll find a way, even if we draw Fener. Uh, but after that, it's pure goddamn luck and Mendilibar's plans. I hope so.
Yeah, we'd
Honestly,
love to be optimistic, but it's again. I mean, I'm my brain still hasn't processed that we did that last season. It's probably going to take me a couple of years to fully accept that we did that, but it's this is why we play these games again. You know, you don't want to be playing a nobody. I want to play the big teams. I want to play in the hardest environments. I want to see, you know, our players, especially our young players, continue to flourish. I mean, this is last season in some of those tough matches is what gave Zolakis the boost he needed to rise to the level he's at right now. It was that match against Maccabi. It was that match against Fenerbahce, saving penalties from some of the greatest penalty takers to ever live. You know, it's going to be super exciting for guys like Muzakidis, guys like Kostulas to get to prove themselves against some big competition on a big stage. So I'm super excited for it, no matter who we draw. Even if we get a tough draw, which we will, it's going to be awesome to watch.
it's an experience for everyone with different circumstances for everyone. It's Medilibar proving that depending on what he does, just cementing the opinion that he is our best coach of all time. It's the kids, as you said, proving how truly talented they are and how bright their careers will get. And it's people like Ese, people like Carmo, people like Orta now, running it back and proving that last season wasn't a fluke and that this team is, as I mentioned, more than levels above everyone else.
Trying to see. I want to know. Yeah, so I was talking about this to you earlier before we got on the show. Huge night for the Olympiacos coefficient wise. We added 6.5 coefficient points to our individual club coefficient, which puts us third out of all of the clubs that could qualify automatically to the Champions League next season if we win the Super League. So you know, as we talked about Europe and the incredible strides we're making, it's important to think about the league as well. Not only that we have this opportunity to qualify directly for the Champions League next season, but um, two of our closest rivals in the title race have to play two additional matches now. I think that is huge for us as far as our rotation, even talking about the fact that we have so much depth, right? I mean, how many injuries is it actually going to take for us to struggle against these other teams that have to play more, have less depth than we do, have less talent than we do? I mean, again, it just goes back to these games are so important. And all of the little results along the way, you know, Solaki saving a penalty against Fente, El Kabi getting the last minute goal against Porto. I mean, they all add up. You know, the pennies make a million, right? It's so big on so many levels for us. And again, you know, we have a chance right now. We're only a point and a half behind Dinamo to get up to second in that club's list. So that equals a win or two draws in the round of 16. And we're the second place club. And Rangers, who would be the only club ahead of us, are 13, 14 points off Celtic. They're not going to win the league. So it's a huge opportunity now that we have to again in a second season running, not have to play any qualifiers and get to spend more time in a preseason rather than needing to play competitive matches in July or August.
And not only not having to play in qualifiers, but also getting into the biggest competition of them all. Uh, just a boost in every department of this club, whether that's player pool, whether that's economically wise, with that, pretty sure it's 30 million for qualifying
Yeah,
to the group stage. And anything and everything you can look, whether it's keeping players, motivation, everything comes with guaranteed Champions League football, of course. And I don't know if what I said before was heard. I hope it was. Uh, but another thing that you had told me was that the the coefficient points for Greece were quite a few as well, despite Pauk's loss.
we entered the top 10 for this
We,
season. So again, this is probably not something that'll mean anything because it's only the top two teams. But we've entered the race for an additional Champions League spot, a direct qualifying spot. We just have to make up 6 points to catch Italy, um, but it says a lot again about Olympiacos' contributions as well as PAOK and Panathinaikos. Granted, we do have to give them some credit for um, three Greek clubs managing to make the knockouts. That hasn't happened in 10, 15 years. So we do have to be fair and give them their props. But again, this is Olympiacos carrying the flag again, another season of us being the biggest contributors. Um, and yeah, we as a country we're ninth in 2024 as far as most coefficient points gathered, ahead of some pretty big countries that have been out competing us for a while now. It's great to see that, and again, we've completely solidified our spot in top 15 for next season. We're probably going to finish top 12, probably in 11th. So it's just continuing to push ourselves forward, but the league as well. I mean, it's great for Greek football. For everybody to be advanced in the coefficients and qualifying rounds because that's how we're going to grow as a league and be able to draw more talent and be more competitive. Because again, as much as we would hate to see our rivals grow and get better, that's going to improve us as well because it helps to compete against better teams every week rather than you know some of these teams in Greece that we have that are verging on semi-professional. So it's great to see, and obviously again the majority of that contribution has to be given to Olympiacos for the last two incredible seasons in Europe.
it's not just the last two. Of course, it is the last one, but despite us not really making Champions League part of that horrible, horrible season that I don't really want to recall upon, it's been a build-up of it's been a build-up of so many years that's ultimately led to this. And of course, we have, as you said, to give some credit to uh, the others, especially Pau, for their consistency. We've been carrying this country.
I mean, I think it's funny that that one season we were just horrible. All the other rival fans were like, oh, Olympiacos failing Greece in Europe again. It's like you guys concede goals to the other team's goalkeeper. I don't, I don't want to hear it. But yeah, it's great to continue to see, and I'm really hoping that this ushers in an era of stability for Olympiacos, and this isn't just one of these 3-year peaks that we see before it's a massive fall off again. I don't think that's going to be the case because like you and I have talked about, Mendilibar, probably the best manager we ever had, and there's no reason why he wouldn't be here for a long time. Um, and the club in general as well. I mean, again, I think it also kind of goes, not talked about as much. Olympiacos is doing all of this right now with 4 academy products starting and being arguably 4 of our most important players. 2 of them are teenagers. That's not something you could have said about Olympiacos at any point in our history because we've never been good at developing talent, in volume, right? It's always been, we'll have a Redseapodcast come through, or we'll have a Papadopoulos come through, or here and there. But now it's consistent, and the youth team is continuing to churn out talent. So all in all, the direction we're in is incredibly solid, incredibly stable, and it seems like it's going to continue that way for a long time.
It's started to be a constant production with all of our academy levels doing more than insanely good and producing more than wonderful talents. But even the bunch from last season youth league that's nowhere near all showed up. As I've said, many people are out on loan, many people are still down at the under 19s. There is more than enough people for us to be said for a while. And sure, not everyone's going to be a superstar, but there is people that can give a lot to this team. For how much more do I have you? Because it's been an hour.
Yeah, I mean, technically my lunch hour is over, but it's coast is kind of clear. So I mean, as long as we wrap it up here in the next couple minutes, it should be good.
Yeah, that's exactly what I asked for because I don't wanna. You've more or less carried the show with my connection cutting out every 25 minutes, three times now. Uh, so just give me your MVP and we should be good.
I mean, I guess you have to say El Gabi. I mean, I think there's several players you could give it to today. Salakis was fantastic again. Costinha, as you mentioned earlier, Costulas. Um, really, I don't think there was a single bad performance, and that was one of the things I noticed earlier. All of our player ratings were above 7, based on Opta. So that's all 11 of our starters. So that says a lot. But I mean, I think you have to give it to El Gabi because he broke the game open with the 2 goals. But really, I would say the MVP is the team. Everybody did fantastic. Mendilibar set us up for success, rotated the squad, but still got it right. I mean, I don't think there's a single bad thing you could say about anybody.
I couldn't agree more. Honestly, as much as as you said, you had individual Gabi, everyone played at the top of their game, and again, a lot of bests being thrown around today. Uh, Arguably best managed game by Medellin, especially given the rotation.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's tough because I think he obviously got it completely right. Um, but I hesitate to say it was his best managed game because we were playing the worst team in the Europa League this season. They did finish 36th. So I mean, I think you do have to consider that, but that I don't want to take anything away from him. I don't know if I would say it was his
One
best
of.
managed. It's up there for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's about it for today. I hope my end wasn't too bad despite the two cutouts. I was able to recover fast from the insanity that has been my connection today. Thank you once again, man, for being here, and thank you everyone for joining what's said to be hopefully one of the first of many historic episodes of this season once again.
Absolutely, got to run last season back. Let's do it again.
I ran it back and I ran it back mornings failed as well.
We'll
Thank you
have to.
everyone for
You guys.
a record breaking episode as well. See you in the next one.